Good morning, everyone. It's Dexy from A2K, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Autodesk Fusion 360 Collaboration and Data Management. Applications engineer John Pitcher will be presenting for us. At A2K, we're all about fostering innovation through consulting and training. A2K Technologies plays a vital role in helping infrastructure, building, mining, construction, architecture, and manufacturing industries reach their full potential by delivering complete technology solutions and support services such as education, consulting, and IT managed services. We're working with visionaries to shape the future of design and in turn enable them through innovation to minimize risks, improve productivity, and achieve excellence. A2K Technologies is considered the business partner of choice and trusted advisor by vendors and clients. We partner with major software and hardware vendors to meet our clients' technology needs. We strive to exceed client expectations by understanding the challenges and delivering solutions through experience and innovation. We work with clients and companies of any size, nationally and abroad. Let's get started, John.
Thanks, Dex, and good afternoon, everybody. Just a quick sound check. You can hear me all right, Dexter?
Yep, perfect.
Very good. And yeah, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you along, and it's my pleasure to be able to present today's webinar around the concept of Fusion 360 and the concept particularly related to data management and some aspects of collaboration that we're going to be talking about as we work through today's material. So I'm presently working with A2K as a technology, as an application engineer in the mechanical space mainly. So my background is in manufacturing. I spent 20 odd years in manufacturing industries in various aspects of manufacturing. So I've been involved quite heavily with CNC programming. So I spent quite a lot of my time on CNC equipment. Also worked in hydraulics and pneumatic industry and also machine tool design manufacture. So yeah, I've spent a number of years in various industries. And for the past 13 years or so, I've been specifically involved in the Autodesk line of products and training people to use Inventor and AutoCAD and Fusion. So, and certainly just of the last 18 months or so, I've been spending a bit more time in the additive manufacturing space. I do quite a lot of 3D printing these days for clients and various aspects of that. So that's just a little bit about me. So yeah, thanks for joining us again. It's great to have you along. And like I said, today's webinar is around, is focused around one of the amazing technologies that Autodesk have released, one of their fantastic little CAD applications called Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is an interesting platform in the sense that it's sort of, I guess, in one sense, it's perhaps considered the new kid on the block, so to speak. It was developed in the mid-90s. So it's a fairly new package as far as CAD systems goes. Many of the other CAD applications that are in the marketplace today were developed 10 and perhaps even 20 years prior to that. AutoCAD, perhaps being one of the older ones, was developed in the 1970s and 80s and continues to be perhaps one of the most widely used CAD applications today. But why would I say it's important that we're talking about Fusion and the fact that it's yeah, it's only really just coming up for 25 or 30 odd years old. It's, I guess the real key to that lies in the fact that where the world was in the 90s and moving into the 2000s when Fusion really started to take traction. And the real point I want to highlight here is that I guess back in the late 70s and early 80s, for those of you that can remember back that far, we were still using dial-up internet. And sending a 100 kilobyte file took quite a few minutes, as I recall. Certainly sending documents with fonts and graphics and things on them was quite a challenge. But certainly the Internet of Things has made massive changes to the way we work. And really, that's what I really want to highlight today is the amazing concepts of working with cloud data and storing files in the cloud, which is not a new thing either. Applications like Dropbox and Google Drive have been around for a number of years. But what I really want to point out here is that Fusion itself is quite a powerful tool from the concept of working with cloud data, and it was designed to do that. So the whole concept of Fusion and the way we work nowadays with being much more interconnected and working with large amounts of data, and certainly being able to share that data via the internet is quite important. Obviously now it's nothing to send a 10 megabyte email, and yeah, certainly as time goes on, the amount of data storage and data usage that we need is growing in capacity. So really the Internet of Things has changed the way we work, and it's really given us a many faceted aspect of working with not only storage in the cloud, but being able to also utilize the power of large server banks, which are hosted by companies like Amazon, and Autodesk hosts their own server banks as well, where we can actually send computational processes to the cloud to make things happen a whole lot quicker. So for instance, if I was doing an FEA study on a particular part and it was going to chew up my CPU for 10 hours, effectively, for me to load that up to an Autodesk server, it would take 1/10 of the time. And for anybody that's done any rendering or, like I said, high-end FEA studies and concepts like that, you'll be aware of the fact of how long your machine needs to be locked up on, sorry, jump back a bit there. Yeah, how long your CPU needs to be locked up processing some of these aspects. So it's quite an important thing that we understand the changes to the way we're working today. And I guess what I really want to highlight today is how Fusion does that so easily for us. And I'll be going through a live demonstration a little later on in our webinar today, and perhaps explore some of those concepts of sharing data and doing that quite easily without needing to be waiting copious amounts of time for the data to be uploaded and downloaded, because obviously internet speeds have increased, which is great. Even here in Australia with our NBN network, we've got slightly better speeds now, so things are moving along. And I'm sure even just in the last 8 months since the global challenge of the COVID pandemic, we're realizing that things need to change. The way we work needs to change, the opportunity to work from multiple locations. So having data stored on a local server and VPNing into that server, a lot of companies have found that this is not workable. It's too slow to be able to do that. And that's where certainly working with cloud data stored on a server securely, of course, and we'll talk about some of the security aspects of this later on. So I guess the big thing is we are now all creating and consuming huge amounts of data, certainly within design and engineering, and we'll be exploring that a little more as we go on. So I want to talk about Fusion 360. Some of you may have heard of Fusion 360. Fusion is a very, very powerful CAD application that's been developed over the last 20 or so years. Like I said, it was initially sort of touted in the late 90s, but really took off in the 2000s, and we've seen quite a lot of development move forward. Now, you may have heard of some of the other 360 applications that Autodesk have released as well. Now, one thing that I do just want to point out is that there's quite a range of these. You might have heard of BIM 360 or AutoCAD 360. So a lot of these are actually cloud-dependent functionalities. And whilst Fusion 360 is very synchronized with the cloud, it's a cloud-enabled application, but we still load the local CAD application onto our local machine. It's quite a light-duty application in that sense. But what it does, it links with a cloud storage area to enable us to pick up data from a cloud storage area, or in fact, we can do that locally as well. So we can save our Fusion files locally if you've got problems with securities or your company won't allow you to use cloud type data. So we can operate, Fusion will actually quite happily operate for a period on offline mode. And I'll show you that as well as we go through the demonstration a little later on. But we can save files to our local drive. So if you've got something that's particularly sensitive or that you're not able to put up onto a cloud storage area, we can certainly save files locally also. So yeah, I'd just like to go through some of those aspects. So yeah, like I said, one of the big areas of Fusion is that it links with what we call Autodesk 360, or what's commonly referred to as A360, which is basically like Dropbox. So if you've used Dropbox in the past, or Fusion Drive, Google Drive, you'd be familiar with some of the tools that we've got for managing data in the cloud and having access to them on multiple devices. So the great thing is we can open a file on our phone or on an iPad or a Surface or whatever it might be, and also it'd be working remotely via a laptop or wherever you are, and that data is always available to you provided you've got an internet connection. So like I said, it's great for simply storing files, but there's also some other very, very powerful tools and areas of Fusion that make this work so well for us. So we'll explore that a little later on. And like I said, we've got quite a number of areas of Fusion that do actually use cloud processing. So we can go through and run, for instance, a generative design study that running on your local PC would, yeah, like I say, maybe chew up 10 or 15 or 20 hours of work time for your CPU. Whereas if we upload that to the cloud, it basically happens in 1/10 of the time. So something that would take 10 hours on your local machine will happen effectively in an hour on the Autodesk servers by way of a rendering or some other process. One of the really clever tool that I've mentioned there on the slide is the fact that Fusion can run quite happily and natively on a Mac. This is quite unique. There's not too many other CAD systems that will run natively on a Mac. There is an AutoCAD for Mac now, which is really good. I guess for those of you that are orientated around Macintosh type machines, the good news is Fusion will quite happily run natively on your Mac. You don't need to run Boot Camp or Parallels like you might need to with other CAD systems. So yeah, the Fusion interface has some really, really powerful tools for creating sheet metal flat patterns. We can animate and explode assemblies. We can do quite a lot of surfacing with T-splines and NURB surfaces for those of you that are related to that. But what I'd like to do just before we jump into our live demo is just talk to you just for a couple of minutes about the various industrial revolutions. This is quite an interesting subject and something that I find particularly helpful in helping us to understand the future of making things. So looking back through history, there's effectively been, or there is currently what we consider 4 industrial revolutions. These go right back to the late 1700s when we started using steam power, and certainly into the early 1800s where basically we stopped, or we continued to use manual labour, but we also performed many other tasks aided by animals as well, and using other forms of labour, but certainly steam engine was a major development of that. The second industrial revolution took place in the late 19th century, in 1870s, and basically the big difference there was that mass production started taking place, and obviously with the onset of electricity and oil and gas, this led to quite a major shift in the way that things are made and the way that we go about business. So that was quite a big shift. But in the mid 1900s, so around 1960, 70, there was what we considered the third industrial revolution, and effectively this was basically spurned by developments in electronics and obviously the personal computer. And a lot of that technology went into factories, and really this is when CNC machines started to take off, when we had computer-controlled equipment, which could then manufacture products much more quickly and much more consistently and much more accurately. So effectively what we're doing now, though, is living in what we consider the 4th industrial revolution. and it's been branded Industry 4.0. You may have heard that term around the traps, but it's quite an interesting one. And the big thing with this is interconnectivity, and the use of sensing devices, even in the smallest of situations. So we can do some data collection from what's often referred to as a cyber physical system, and we're able to generate information based on loads and temperature changes and things like that, that allows us to boost productivity and various elements of that. But the big thing that I want to talk about here is interconnectivity, and this is really where Fusion becomes one of the more powerful tools that can lead us into this interconnected type style of data management and CAD systems. So really, yeah, I don't want to spend too much time. I find it quite interesting looking back at the history of how we've seen changes to industrial development over the years, and something that's most interesting. So yeah, lots of interesting data there with regard to Industry 4.0, and there's a whole plethora of language that goes with that, with things like digital twins, and yeah, augmented reality and digital reality, etc., etc. What we want to do today is really focus in on some of those aspects of Fusion that refer to the concept of sharing data quite quickly and easily, which is something that's quite unique to Fusion. So being able to share data in a connected type way, and to do that with directly from within the software, is what we're really going to be focusing on today. We're not going to be going into huge detail on modeling in Fusion or any of those aspects, but certainly working with some of those elements as we speak. So a big thing with Fusion, and for anybody that's used Fusion, you would obviously be aware of this, but there's a little button up in the top right of your Fusion workspace that I'm going to explore with you in a minute, called the data panel. So the data panel allows us to set up projects and to look at different areas of work that might be carried out by our particular department or whatever it might be. And like I said, this is linked to a storage drive, which is often referred to as A360. It's had a couple of name changes over the years. It used to be called Drive, Autodesk Drive originally. So yeah, number of little changes there. But effectively, the benefit of this is that it's all interlinked with your CAD system. So where you would have to go and find a Word document in Google Drive or whatever it might be, the benefit of Fusion 360 is the fact that it's all right there at your fingertips whilst you're working within Fusion. A couple of other really big benefits of this is that all our revisions are managed through this as well. So whenever we do a save on a file in Fusion, it automatically revisions it up. So it moves it from revision 1 to revision 2. Next time I open and save it, it calls it revision 3, so on and so forth. So it will actually up-rev the file whenever we used it. So it's, and we can also always go back to those previous revisions. Those revisions are all stored in the cloud and available to us via the data panel. So the other really beneficial thing, and I'll run a little test on this a little later in our demonstration, is that it's very interconnected with other people within our organisation. So we can very quickly go in and work on files that are being used by other people. We can do some investigation and work in a much shorter lead time, because we don't have to wait for that person to finish their work. We can simply look at the revision that they're working on or the previous revision and have a look at that. So I guess being interconnected is a big part of the way that we work to work through that. So yeah, a couple of things there with regard to, like I mentioned before, we can access our data from any device. So if we want to just quickly view a file on our iPhone or an Android device, we can go through and open up a file directly from our cloud store, just like you would with a photo or a document or whatever it might be that you want to look at in that regard. Now, a lot of people ask us about the security of the data within Fusion. And Autodesk have a whole system of security and there's some very detailed information on the web. It's actually, I've got this open here. I'll just quickly pull it up. Autodesk have a compliance system, which you can see here, where they talk about the various international codes for data compliance and data storage compliance. There's a lot of information and data here on the various aspects of that. But as you can see, if you scroll down here, here's all the Autodesk online apps and the different elements that they tick. And down here you'll find Fusion 360 is compliant or compatible with ISO 27001, 27017 and 27018. So yeah, a good lot of detail there. But if you want to read further on that, you'll find that at the site I've got linked there in the PowerPoint screen, which is here. So yeah, autodesk.com trust /trust/compliance. So if you want to read up further on that, certainly feel free to go to that particular link. You'll find all the details there on how Autodesk keep your data secure. Like I said though, earlier in the presentation, we can save data locally. So we can actually save our files locally and not upload them to the net, provided we're working within the Fusion sort of interface. There's no problem with working on that particular data. So what we might do is jump into Fusion now and have a quick look at some aspects of the Fusion interface, and particularly how we can work with that. So when we open Fusion, we get just a blank screen that looks a bit like this. You'll notice it's a very traditional CAD system with a bunch of icons and some pull-down menus. We're not going to go into huge detail on any of these options, but the Fusion software has many functionalities, obviously, very similar to all of your other CAD data and your various other aspects of that. So lots of different options for working within your CAD data. But like I said, the real key button that we want to talk about today is this data panel up in the very top left. There is a shortcut for that one if you're keen to use shortcuts, which is either Control Alt and D for data panel, and or I think on a Mac keyboard it will be Command Alt and D for the data panel. But effectively what this does is it opens up an area on the left-hand side of your screen here. And if I was to go back to my home workspace, you would find I've got a series of projects in here, some projects and some libraries. Basically what we can do in here is set up, for instance, maybe customer information and save that data as a project. So we can set up projects for maybe a particular client, or perhaps a particular job number, or whatever it might be, however you like to work with your data. So this is the project level, as it's called. And what you'll notice in here is if I go into one of these projects, inside the project, it gives me options here to set up subfolders, so I can create new folders to organize my data. Okay, so I've got a couple of projects in here, or a couple of files in here that I've worked on in the past, and I've also got a folder in here that has some other files uploaded to it. So we can set up multiple subfolders to arrange our data and work through that. And this little path here, a bit like Windows File Explorer, shows me the different levels of the folders that I'm working through here. So yeah, I can go back to the home option just by clicking the little house button, double click into any one of the projects, any one of the subfolders to see each of my particular files that I've worked on in the past. If I was to come in here and double click on one of these files, it would simply open up that particular file. So what I've got here is a little assembly of like a caster or a wheel. And what Fusion is doing is opening that file. So you can see here I've got my little wheel assembly with some socketed cap screws and some brackets and bits and pieces. So with regard to this, you'll notice my wheel assembly here consists of these four components. So I've got obviously two of the brackets, one on each side. I've also got some socket cap screws there that have been brought in. But over on the bottom right of your file here, you'll notice that it lists the versions. So I've saved this particular file 4 times, and so Fusion has revisioned it up. So it gives me all the information about when it was signed. So it looks like I did some work on this particular file on the 10th of the 1st, and I did some edits to that, and so I saved it. And if I was to go in and pick save here now, it would create, would give me the option, sorry, I'd need to do a change, but it would give me the option to call this version 5. So that's a really, really clever thing that, that the Fusion system does. It automatically keeps the history of all of your data. We've also got some other options in here where we can go and explore what designs, what files are used in each of the these assemblies, and we can go and explore that as well and see the drawings associated with this particular file. So your data management is all done through this data panel. Now, like I said, I could go and do a file save as and save this or export it to my local machine as well. So I can do a save as and give it a new name. I can go up here and export this out in a whole range of different CAD formats. So by default, the archive style that Fusion uses is a .f3z file. Okay, but notice I can archive it or save it to my local drive here, and I can pick anywhere on my local PC to save this particular file. So I can go in and save any of that data to my particular local PC. And like I said, a whole range of different formats. So here's all the formats that I can save out of Fusion. So I can save out as a range of different formats, including exporting to Inventor format. So if I want to have a client or a contractor or somebody work on these files in Inventor, I can save out as Inventor files. We've got a range of other options here, SAT and STEP and IGES, which are all very standard type formats. Also, we can save out as an STL, ready for 3D printing. So a range of different options here with regards to the style and type of file that we can save out to. So we've got the option here to export our file in any one of these particular formats. Now, what I want to do is just talk about the top section of the data panel. Like I said, the data panel is quite a crucial part of working within Fusion because effectively it's the storage area, if you like, as to where we want to see that. Now, there's quite a few things we can do in here. So let's just take it from the very top. Across the top here, it's showing me my account. So you'll notice I've got an account, JSP F360 drive, which actually is linked to this particular information. So if I was to go and open that, so I can open this in the internet and it will bring up, in here, it will log me into my Fusion team. And this data here is all replicating what I can see in my data panel. So we had the A2K Fusion samples folder open. And in here, you'll notice I've got this folder called training files. And if I was to open that folder, in here, I would have my wheel assembly. And here's the components for my wheel that are directly available through my web browser. Now, there's quite a range of things I can do in here. I've got, quite an assortment of different functionalities. You can see that it's telling me that this file is in use by me at the present. But I can actually preview it directly here on the internet. So if I was to go and open this little file called Vice in here, I could go and open any one of these components or have a look at the overview of those parts. It will tell me some information about that. Again, it tells me where it's used. It tells me that it's used in such and such, and here's if I had a drawing related to that as well. Okay, so quite a lot of very valuable data is stored within our F360 drive. And the same sort of concept where I can, up the top here, go back to the home area and pick up one of my other projects that I might be looking at So obviously this is directly available on any device that has an internet connection. I can go and open this folder and quickly look at some of these other bits of information with regard to that. Okay, so I can upload files obviously from my local machine into this area as well and have them available in my Fusion 360 database as we see there. So jumping back into the Fusion space, like I said, that little button there takes me automatically to the A360 space, which is effectively my my storage or my cloud storage area of my data within my drive. So what I might do next is, so you see we've got two headings here. We've got data and people. Now, if I was to go in here and, for instance, if I've got a file open here, and I'm the owner or moderator of this particular project, but what I want to do, and if Dexter's still online, this would be valuable if you can just send this file back to me, Dexter, just to show the users how we can do this. So I can invite any other person to look at a particular piece of data. So back in here, for instance, if I was to go and have a look, I've got this barbecue and I'm designing this barbecue. And what I want to do is actually ask Dexter to have a look at that and tell me if he's happy with my current design. So if I was to go into the barbecue, you'll see I've got the barbecue open here. But if I go to people and share this with Dexter, hopefully Dexter will get an email in the next short moment. So that's actually shared that now with Dexter, and after a minute or two, it will come back and Dexter, and I'll open the email. Dexter's going to send me back the email so I can show you what he has received to save us switching screen share and things like that. But effectively now Dexter is part of this particular process or this job that I'm working on, so perhaps he needs to review my design. So obviously there is other tools to do this on a local server. So Autodesk Vault is the tool that we would frequently use for doing that, for sharing data. And effectively, yeah, we can go through and see that that data as it is changed or updated. So if Dexter wants to leave me a message to say, you know, he doesn't like the design of the burners or whatever, he can send me back some information and mark that file up or whatever it might be. So the data panel in Fusion is a very powerful space. It's like I said, it's sort of your window to the cloud storage part of the Autodesk applications, and very valuable. Obviously in here we've got options to sort our files here, so we can sort by recently used, last updated, for instance. So if I wanted to see the files that I've been using over the last week or two, I could certainly go through that particular process as well. Now, as I mentioned, there's quite a few different workspaces within Fusion. In this design drop down, and I have talked about this in other webinars, so if you want some more information on that, I'll share that with you towards the end of this webinar. But effectively, we can go into, I'm working in the design environment at the moment, but we've got a number of other environments here for working in different aspects of the Fusion workspace. So we've got generative design, and basically, I'll just give you a quick 2-minute rundown on each of these. Generative design is a tool where I can upload a current design to an Autodesk server and effectively tell it where my loads are, tell it the material that I've made it out of, and if I want to save the weight, or if I want to cut down the weight by perhaps 30% or 40%, but I want to retain my rigidity and my stiffness, for that particular part, we can go into the generative design area and set up a study. And basically what we do is upload that to the cloud, and the Autodesk server comes back with a range of iterations as to how that part would be best made, using the parameters that I've set up, whether it be a weight reduction, whether it be a strength improvement, or whatever it might be that I'm trying to achieve there. Fusion has a really nice little render tool as well, where we can go in and render various models. So once we've created our 3D model, we can very quickly go in and add some nice lighting styles to it. We can do a range of different camera views and set up fade-ins, fade-outs, and all those sorts of various aspects for rendering. So as you can see there, we can create some nice shadowing. We've also got an option for animation where we can, if we've developed the gearbox, as you can see there, we can go and explode that apart and break it down into all its individual parts. And we can go through and animate that coming back together. We can save that out as an AVI file or as a WMV file for anybody to view on an iPad. So if you're creating a work instruction for assembling a gearbox, you might need to provide an animated sequence showing that part going back together. And we can add little notes to it to say, you know, don't forget to put some Loctite on this bolt as you insert it so it doesn't rattle loose, for instance. We've also got an option for simulation where we can go in and do stress analysis. So effectively, as you can see there, we've got a bicycle fork system, and we can put a load of 80 kilos on that fork at such and such a rate and see where the stress is and where we need to increase or perhaps where we can cut down on the mass of the material so we can save weight and create a more appropriate piece of information. In here, we've also got a manufacturing area, and this is an area that I'm particularly interested in with a CNC background, but in here we can create tool parts ready for manufacturing our component. Actually, I think I've got one of these. I might just run you through one of those a little later on, but basically it's creating the tool path for us to create our solid model. So the manufacture area, we can set up our machine. We can go in and set up the type of cycle we'd like to use for a particular cutting path, and we can then go and set that up in that fashion. And lastly, we can create 2D drawings. So very quickly we can create a drawing sheet that's ready to share with a user or whatever it might be, and we can go in and open any one of those. So like I said, very, very easy to use. So for instance, this little file here that I've got under my samples, I've got a 2D milling sequence, which is basically a little piece of CAM information. So I've got my machine bed here, I've got my vise, and I've got my part held in my machine vise. And effectively what I can do in here is go in and simulate the parts in its machining sequence. So we can go through and set up our tool paths and machine the various components or faces of our part, and effectively this will allow us to step through and see all of the to the next path, so we can jump through each of the cycles and see how my part is machined. So this is all done locally, so this is all processed locally on your local machine, and basically Fusion is generating the cycle for each of these, and we can print out tool sheets and a whole range of different aspects for CNC work. So yeah, the whole concept of Fusion is it's very much an integrated process. Like I said, we've got all these different aspects in the one interface where we can quickly go in. Like I said, we can collaborate and share our design with other people, and we can see each of those elements as they are generated. So yeah, that's a bit of information about Fusion itself. Like I said, we have done other webinars on different aspects of the Fusion interface, and there's more to come. We'll certainly be doing more of these webinars in future around the design elements of of Fusion and certain other aspects of utilizing your Fusion software. So look, there's many things that we can explore within the Fusion interface. There's lots of different areas of being able to work with different types of files. So we can open a range of different files within Fusion as well. So you'll notice if we go in and open a file, we can open either from our cloud storage here. So this is all the cloud storage areas. And here I've got an option to go and open locally as well. So if I've got a file on my computer, I can go in and pick from a range of different file types. So effectively, here's all the different files that Fusion will open. So we can, and look, I don't think it'll be too limited there. There's quite a an assortment of files, again, including inventor files. So if you're an inventor user and you're thinking about doing a bit of CNC, we can go in and work with that as well. But yeah, quite a number of different file format types there that we can go in and open from the Fusion interface. So like I said, probably the key things or the takeaways from today, the data panel is a link, if you like, to your Fusion 360 drive area, or what's often referred to as A360 or Autodesk 360, which is, like I said, our local drive space. So lots of different tools available to us. Like I said, basically you can set this up as a cloud storage, a bit like you would with Dropbox or Google Drive, and all of your CAD data. It doesn't have to be CAD data only. We can certainly save other elements in there. What I probably should say is that by default, anybody who has an Autodesk account, and this is free as well, bear in mind, so you get a default 5 GB storage allowance. If you own an Autodesk product, I believe they currently up that to 25 gig, and you can certainly purchase other 100 gig storage allowances that will allow you to work with that particular amount of data. So no problems at all to store as much as you like in the cloud, if you like. And like I said, Fusion does a really nice job of organizing all this for us, as does your Fusion 360 drive area, which, like I said, is the link, if you like, or the A360 area for looking at each element of that. So really, what I hoped to do today was just give you a bit of a brief overview of the benefits of working in the cloud and using the Fusion data panel. Like I said, we can set up as many projects as we like. Pinning these projects simply puts them at the top because they're the ones that I'm frequently using. I can also go in here and archive these files. So once I've finished a project, I can go in and archive it. We can cache it to our local machine as well, so it would be available to us when we're offline. So it's another area that might be worth thinking about. That's just available through the right-click menu. So yeah, quite a few options with regard to how that particular information works. But yeah, effectively, if I wanted to open this file, it's still at version 1. So really nicely, we get these options here. Effectively, we double-click that, and we would then see the utility knife open, which is a nice little assembly. And my internet's a little bit clunky. I'm working from a home office today, but yeah, effectively, yeah, we've got our little Stanley knife, or utility knife as they're often called. And yeah, we can certainly go in here and look at the different aspects of that. So look, I think Fusion 360 is really worth a look at. It's a very powerful tool that enables us to create a range of CAD files. And like I said, basically the sky's the limit. We've got many, many options in here that enable us to be able to see our CAD files and CAD data. So look, that was really what I had hoped to cover today. There is a couple of other slides that I had here with regard to generative design. I don't think we've probably got the time to go through those. I've just realised it's coming up for 45 minutes there. So I'm not sure if there's any other questions at this point. Feel free to pop questions into the chat panel. You'll notice on your Zoom area, you've got the option for Q&A. So please feel free to do that. I will hand control back to Dexter, but certainly I'll be answering any of those questions if I can as we go through the particular Q&A session. But just to perhaps point out one or two other things before we wrap up. If you'd like to see any of our other videos or our upcoming events, please go to the site you can see on your screen at the moment. If you'd like to go to that site, you'll see all of our upcoming webinars. We're frequently running these webinars on a range of different topics, both manufacturing related, AEC related, and I'm sure Dexter will perhaps have some more information on that. So I'll hand back to you, Dexter, while I have a look for the questions, if you've got anything else you want to add there.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I'm not sure if you've seen, we've got a couple of messages from Matt. So
Yes.
he mentioned that he's tried to upload an Inventor assembly that includes a 2.4 GB cloud point from Recap, but the point cloud is missing from the Fusion 360 storage.
Yes, okay. So Fusion at this point probably doesn't have the same capacity as some of the other systems to deal with point clouds. You will find that purely the size of those files can be a challenge. So thanks, Matt, for your question on that one. If the point cloud has been included in the IPT, it's a very good question. I can certainly see what you're saying there. And I have run across this once or twice before where it struggles with just purely the amount of data in the point cloud. I don't believe there is great functionality at this point with Fusion and point clouds, but I'll certainly reach out to you on that privately and send you some further information if you'd like to. I'll follow that up for you. So that's fine. I see another question there from Marcos too. Compared to Inventor, is Fusion 360 able to replace it? Look, I don't think at this point. The both products still are retaining a fairly sort of a different space. Fusion is probably not designed for large assemblies in the sense that if I was doing a 1,000-part assembly, I would probably choose Inventor over Fusion just purely from a sheer size of the file, I guess. So Fusion is perhaps at this point, and look, I think that will change in time. Obviously, the developers for Fusion are working with very quickly to try and make it, I guess, be as close to Inventor's ability as possible. But at this point, like I said, if I was doing perhaps a 1,000-part assembly, I would still choose Inventor. And again, some of that is because my background is with Inventor. But like I said, the Fusion does have some very clever tools for working with large assemblies. But I don't think at this point Fusion will replace Inventor. Certainly not in the next couple of years at any rate. I wouldn't be surprised if Autodesk are working towards that, but like I said, I don't think that. So yeah, I can see your comment there as well, Marcos, with regard to point cloud capabilities. I'll certainly chase that up and respond to you both on that. That's I'll take that offline and come back with some further information. So I don't know if there's any other questions, but if you'd like to get in touch with us, I'll also just pop this up on the screen so you can see there some information about how to get in touch with us via email. So look, thanks for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. It's a very big subject, and certainly working with cloud data and working with interacted and collaborated designs is a very powerful part of where we're going in the future.